Okay, so everybody online right now is saying, I don't think the WrestleMania build is very good. Then somebody else comes in and says, I think the WrestleMania build is great. So I have found this. This is the WrestleMania Is the Build Any Good party popper. What I'm going to do is I'm going to blow it. It makes a good noise. It makes you feel all warm, fuzzy, and tum-tum. It means that WrestleMania has had a great build. But if we do it and it sounds like crap, it means WrestleMania has had a terrible build. So are you ready? Just going to try and make it straight because it's not. It doesn't bode well at all. 3, 2, 1. It's just a terrifying noise, which means WrestleMania is gonna be scary. That was a waste of your life and a waste of mine, but hello, my name is Simon from WhatCulture. Welcome to Ups and Downs, and it's the very last Raw before WrestleMania. But was it any good? We find out as we up those damn downs. Right, this WrestleMania nonsense is out of control. Why? Because Michael Cole joined the commentary team, even though he is part of the SmackDown broadcast. But I think it's a bit much that we have wrestlers all over the shop, but why the hell do we have to do it with our announcers, especially because in a few months Survivor Series is going to be here, and everyone's going to be going like, oh my gosh, I love being on Fridays, and everybody else is going to be like, oh, I love being on Mondays, and it's like, no you don't, because when WrestleMania comes around, you don't even care. Anywho, once we got past that, Brock Lesnar stormed to the ring. And this version of Lesnar may very well be his best yet. It was all happy though, even though he didn't really like introducing us to Raw, because of course these days he doesn't have a Paul Heyman, so he had to go, hey man, welcome to the show, and then said how much he regretted it. However, he also said when he gives Roman Reigns an F5 at WrestleMania, it's gonna be like a carnival ride of joy. He should definitely keep that. The crowd were also chanting what the whole time, because of course Steve Austin comes back in a few days, but Brock didn't care about this at all. He even said, haha, yeah, you have some fun, but don't forget, Steve Austin never whooped my ass. So now everybody online is predicting the next year we will do Brock Lesnar versus Stone Cold. Let me tell you right now, we're not. Lesnar then said that he would marry together the WWE titles and the Universal Championship and take custody of both. And while that did get a reaction, I sat there and thought to myself, that is one of the stupidest lines I've ever heard in my life. Anyway, this was good though. It was just a way to remind you that it is going to be a main event on the show of shows. I'm giving it up. The Miz was then here. Boy, this was something. Because he introduced us to Logan Paul, or who we're now calling Lucha Logan, because of course he's in possession of the Rey Mysterio mask that he stole recently. So it was a little bit like this. Now, I don't know about you, but just because I all of a sudden appear wearing a luchador mask doesn't mean that I'm going to be able to do Hurricane Ranas and flippy dippy stuff off the top rope. However, this is Miz's plan, because he now wants to steal another of Rey Mysterio's masks so that at WrestleMania, when Logan Paul and The Miz come out, they can be the Lucha Brothers, I suppose. This, of course, is when Rey and Dominic interrupted, so bring it down. That is 57 interruptions in WWE in 87 in all of pro wrestling. And basically, they just ran in there. They beat them up for a little while. It was then Rey Mysterio versus The Miz. Dominic got sent away because he was being a schmeral. And then Rey won with the most devastating move in all of sports entertainment, the surprise roll-up. Dobby Boy then just came out again, so that was a bit of a waste of his time. And while they were going to beat up Lucha Logan, they weren't able to. Instead, they just kicked the crap out of The Miz. Because, of course, what I suppose is going to happen is that we get to WrestleMania, and finally, Logan Paul gets his. And look, everybody here is doing what they have to do, but I have to be honest with you, this hasn't done much of anything for me. Like, I explore my feelings as if I'm in Star Wars, and I just think it's been a bit meh. And I think the match will be entertaining, but I need a little bit more when we are so close to the show of shows. I'm giving it down. We then had a bunch of videos that basically went, oh my gosh, WrestleMania. Oh, I love WrestleMania. Hang on a second. I don't need that on anymore. When we also had a video for Veer, as we were promised that he will turn up next week. You listen to me here, WWE. He better. They've also confirmed that it is 2022, so they can't drop the ball again. And I have no flubbing idea how we can pay off all this weaker build. Just don't play with my emotions anymore. Just allow Veer to appear on the Raw after WrestleMania. But he's probably going to have to come out and say, oh, I challenged Will Smith for obvious reasons. And then Will Smith comes out going, nah, and then have a fight. That is the only way you are going to be able to capitalize on this. Let's face it, it ain't gonna happen. We then had another video, but this time it was focusing on Seth Rollins' quest to WrestleMania, and you may have seen this earlier in the day because WWE posted it on social media. But he did go to Vince McMahon's office at WWHQ, and Vince said to him, Seth, if you wanted a match so badly, Why didn't you just come and ask me? So he didn't need to do all this craziness, he just needed to go and see the boss. And my first thought was, well, why the hell didn't Veer go and do this? And don't get me wrong, it is kind of a weak storyline, but I also cannot lie to you. Seth Rollins was so entertaining in this, and he was so over the top, including dancing on Vince McMahon's table and shouting at his weird dinosaur thing on the wall, because he was so happy. I thought it was quite fun. The whole point too is that Seth Rollins is going to be stood in the ring on WrestleMania Saturday, when all of a sudden his opponent is going to be announced. And look, just brace yourselves and maybe go away for a few seconds if you don't like spoilers. Yes, this is going to be Cody Rhodes. Yes, I am mega pumped. And yes, I'm giving it up. And then, what on earth? Because Omos was out to wreck some more geeks, which is fine, that's what we've been doing. But his opponents were the Viking Raiders. No. Now this was via countout, but that means nothing. It was done in 58 seconds, and Omos beat the holy hell out of them so bad, they weren't able to get back in the ring by the count of 10. So we have just taken Eric, and we have taken Ivar, and we have flushed them down the toilet. I mean, you have so many people on your roster that could have fit into this, or just go and get a couple of local talent jobbers or something like that. You've got to get it down. However, I did like what happened afterwards. Because Kevin Patrick was ready to ask Omos who he wanted to face at WrestleMania, and after he said something like, oh, nobody can dominate me, who would come out and interrupt? None other than the returning Bobby Lashley. How he recovered so fast, I'll never know, but he must have John Cena healing magic. And honestly, because it is March, he looked at the WrestleMania sign, because he is a wrestler, and that's just what you do in the springtime, when him and Omos not only started going to blows, but Bobby Lashley, for the first time ever, knocked the big guy off his feet. So they are going to clash in a few days, and while I think it would make much more sense if a Gable Steveson took this role, because instantly we'd be like, oh my gosh, Gable Steveson, he's so good. I like Bobby Lashley, and any good things we can give to Bob, I'm going to get behind. So it is getting it up. Also bring it down, 58 interruptions in WWE and 88 overall. The 24/7 title stuff then went off the chain. I mean, oodalally. But yeah, after I think he said, oh my gosh, I never have any time to do this, Reggie was talking to Dana Brooke when he got down on one knee and he proposed. Dana Brooke also accepted, and I was like, wait a minute. Let me go through the relationship. You kind of bonded over the 24/7 championship, then you did some flips, then you had a kiss. All of a sudden, you've decided, oh man, let's get hitched. Just as they were about to get it on as well, Tamina, what's that, hey, there's nobody mean it, interrupted, and she wanted to try and win the 24/7 championship. But our newlyweds got away, which is when, I can't believe this is real, when Tozawa turned up, and he was like, oh, Tamina, you are the meanest, I want to marry you. And even though it looked like Tamina was gonna hit him, she said yes too. Our truth was in the background saying he had some kind of idea, which is probably he wants to marry the 24/7 belt. And this is some of the most ludicrous stuff I have ever seen on WWE TV. And I cannot believe that it was written, approved, and then made it to air. That's why I'm giving it up. It is the most surreal thing I ever thought I would experience. But here we flub it are. The absolute best bit too is that Roman Reigns followed this. I mean, it's absolutely crazy. You can go from the sublime to the ridiculous, or the ridiculous to the sublime. Raw is just like a crazy roller coaster ride. We also went into promotion mode as Michael Cole told us that Roman Reigns hasn't been pinned or submitted since December 2019. I was like, didn't Xavier Woods defeat him or something? I can't remember. And that when he does main event WrestleMania 38, that is going to be his 6th main event. I don't care who you are, that's pretty damn impressive. Our tribal chief also reminded us that he used to run Raw before Fox were like, please Roman, come over to SmackDown, otherwise he'd still be here killing fools. And yes, once again, the fans started to go, what? And yes, once again, Roman went, oh man, you want to talk about Steve Austin? Well, if he was here, I would smash him too. Which now means WrestleMania 39's backup main event is going to be Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar versus Steve Austin, which WWE probably would do, because it would be a way to do Roman versus Brock number 87,961 and hope that nobody notices. Reigns has done everything in his career though other than beat Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania, and it still kills him deep down inside that he wasn't able to do it at Mania 34, because afterwards his friends and family were looking at him like, well, what good are you? He did have a great go-home line where he said, I'm gonna make it personal because it's always been personal to me. And while that is actual gibberish, it's like me going, I'm gonna have pizza for dinner because I've already had pizza. It's all about tone. It's all about how you delivered it, and he did it very well. So once again, this just ticks the whole, oh, we've got a big match coming up, somebody go out there and do a promo. But like Roman Reigns, he feels like a super duper star. Up. Queen Zelina and Carmella were then doing a photo shoot when Shayna Baszler and Natalya interrupted. So bring it down, that's 59 in WWE and 89 overall. And they just threatened each other. I mean, I suppose it was fine, but I will say I think this whole feud has been undercooked. Before we did get into that build though, hell officially froze over because we had a graphic confirming that the Steiner Brothers are going into the Hall of Fame. And yes, that is Rick along with Scott. And I'll be the first to tell you, I was there when Scotty said some very choice things about WWE, which proves it doesn't matter what you do. If Vince McMahon wants to bring you back because he thinks it's best for business, he damn sure will. And then, yes, we did Sasha Banks, Naomi, Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan taking on Zelina Vega, Carmella, Shayna Baszler and Natalya, because WWE has absolutely no patience and has to take WrestleMania matches, kind of fiddle them around a little bit and give them to you on Raw. It's also absolutely stupid because why would any of these teams team up? They're fighting for the Women's Tag Team Championships and they should hate each other. So that's what we did here. The heels start being like, I don't like you. And the other heels went to the other heels and we don't like you either. So the baby faces took advantage. Rhea Ripley hit the Riptide onto Vega. 1, 2, 3, done. I think during this as well, Corey Graves also dropped her keep my wife's name out of your mouth because of course WWE was already going to parody the Oscars in some sense. However, I was fine with it because in the past, they have done so much worse. And as for the match and all this story, I mean, like, it's okay. It probably falls into the Rey Mysterio situation, but it's a little bit better than that, so up. We then just had the most awesome video featuring Stone Cold Steve Austin, which kind of made you go, man, I really missed the rattlesnake, when all of a sudden Kevin Owens came out to the ring. Just like, well, that was handy. Almost like this stuff is planned. Even Owens said that this was a cool video, but nothing was as good as what he did last week, which has been misrepresented as an insult because he meant it as a tribute. For you see, Owens knows that that's the closest we're ever going to get to the old Stone Cold, so he wanted to give it to us as much as he could do. And also, man, he got berated with what chance here, but it didn't faze him at all. KO is the best. So it's why come WrestleMania, nobody should expect Stone Cold, nobody should expect the Bardic Redneck, they should just expect Steve, a guy who sometimes hosts a podcast. And I won't lie, I started to laugh. He then went on to claim that his stunner was better than Austin's stunner, and if Steve tries anything on the night, he will drop him and lay in. Now, if you did write this story down on paper, it would sound ludicrous, but Kevin Owens is so good, and obviously Steve Austin is so good, they have made me buy into this and then some. I genuinely can't wait. I am so damn excited, and I'm giving it up. We then got Omos versus Lashley confirmed, but we were also told that come SmackDown, it was gonna be Angel versus Humberto versus Ricochet. And if you're getting excited about that because you enjoy our Intercontinental Champion, well, don't, because I don't think it's gonna go very well for the man. Because Ricochet was indeed on Raw, he walked to the ring, he was facing Austin Theory, because why the flub not, and he lost within 2 minutes. And this was just to the ATL as well, which goes to show that ever since Rick has won this championship, it has been counterproductive. Also, what the flubble sticks are we doing? Why have we decided to take it in this direction? And why on earth is Ricochet or Finn Balor, why aren't they on WrestleMania? They have the 2 secondary titles, here they are, Imagination Land, in my hand, and this is what WWE thinks is the best way to get them over. Well, let me tell you, my friends, it is not down. Bianca Belair was back on Raw after this, though. She is very, very good. Did have some very weird things to say because she was like, just my existence is a threat to Becky Lynch. Like she was Skynet or something. And that is why Bex keeps attacking her. She knows she has to try and stop her. So actually, this is just the plot of the Terminator. Lynch then zoomed out because she was so mad, but this must be one of the worst executed plans in history. Because almost instantly, Bianca was beating up on her and Becky Lynch was able to get a chair, but that didn't work either. Because when Lynch produced some scissors, because of course she was going to chop off Bianca's hair, she turned the tables and we actually saw Becky Lynch sitting in the ring as Bianca Belair got these shears and started cutting it off. The best part about this is that WWE officials went mad, even though in the past they've seen people dead in the ring. They're like, we'll deal with it later. And my big question to you all is why isn't this hair versus hair? I mean, that really would have got some good old heat going for the story, but actually, I think this tale is pretty good. I do want to see the match, and if Bianca Belair does finally get her revenge for SummerSlam, well, that will make me a happy pup. I'm all good with that. Up. Afterwards, Lynch was in the back too, and she just looked in the camera and she went, Bianca Belair, you bitch. And I totally understand that. I've lost my hair as well, and I have screamed at Mother Nature a lot. I was then a little bit confused, because I really like Drew McIntyre, I really like Madcap Moss, and I really like Happy Corbin, but why, once again, would you put them in any kind of a match that kind of takes away from what we're going to do at WrestleMania? Because we were actually doing Corbin and Madcap teaming up to take on Drew. And look, this was just one big angle, it was just one big story, but I was still like, WWE, you just gotta back off a little bit. We also saw some footage from earlier where Madcap Moss and Baron Corbin fell out again, so we know we're teasing that for after WrestleMania. But this is actually why I quite dig this program, because we're looking into the future. Obviously, Drew McIntyre will win at the weekend, but that also sets him up to feud with Roman Reigns. I enjoy it when we take strands and we link them together. We also did more of that as well because Corbin bailed before the end, and that meant Moss got hit with the Claymore kick and Drew McIntyre won, but then Happy was in the ring. He absolutely wrecked Drew McIntyre with the End of Days, and he stole his sword. And of course you would do this. For weeks, Drew McIntyre's been like, hey, I'm gonna stab someone right in the face, and if the police aren't gonna get involved, somebody has to do something. So I do like that this match serves a purpose, and I tell you out there, you negative Nancy's, I actually think when they do get to work, it's gonna be better than a lot of people think. Edge was then back next. He's a little bit weird. So he was sat in a dark room once again in a chair because he was being super serious, Edge, when he told AJ Styles that your fate is already sealed, even though that just means he's going to lose a match at WrestleMania. He then got like this skull weight thing and he put it on some scales, and when it stopped where he wanted to stop, he went like it was the best thing he'd ever done in his life. We then cut right to AJ, who was also a little bit pissed off, and he said, I'm going to give Edge a beating nobody will ever forget. I was a bit like, hey, Mr. Styles, I don't really know what you mean by that, because if you came to the ring dressed as Doink and you beat up the Radar Superstar, you're right, I'm never gonna forget it. So look, this has all been a little bit wonky, and I don't think it's gone exactly as intended, but once again we go into the tum-tum, and when I think about AJ Styles taking on Edge at WrestleMania, it makes me really happy. Rick Boogs and Shinsuke Nakamura were then on Raw, because why the hell not, but also they wanted a front row seat because our main event was RK Bro taking on the Flippin' Usos, ... in a non-title match. Randy Orton and Riddle were on fire here as well because they grabbed Jimmy and Jay and were throwing them into Alan the announce table, and when we got back into the ring, Riddle was just suplexing people like a king. And I've said it before and I'll say it again, when it does come time to break up RK Bro, I really would make Riddle the bad guy, because then he can have a serious edge. Sadly though, eventually the Usos used double team and they grabbed Riddle and they threw him over Barry Barricade, and you could kind of see everything else coming from a mile off. It was going to go beat him down, beat him down, beat him down, beat him down, make a hot tag to Randy Orton, he goes nuts. This then went into overdrive, but I tell you, when we got to the finish, for potentially the third week in a row, WWE did a disqualification, and I didn't hate it at all. And I know, it must mean hell has frozen over and I'm about to grow my hair back, but it was the Street Profits, and they just started to beat everybody up, and I really like this new attitude. And it's reminded me, while they're all like, oh man, we're so happy, we're so great to be here, let's drink out of a cup, it's entertaining. When they're really, really angry, I like them a little bit more. Nakamura and Boogs went into this, so they soon got in there, and the tag klaxon went off. And of course, Raw ended with Randy Orton and Riddle just busting RKOs out to everybody. They are one of the best parts about the show. And that's why I thought it was a nice way to close, because you should reward people for absolutely smashing it. And I enjoyed this match very much, so I am giving it up. Which brought us to the end of this week's Raw. And yes, if you go into the past, there have been much better go-home editions. This one did feel a little bit by the numbers, but I'm still ready for WrestleMania, and I do enjoy how focused WWE are. I am giving it up. Now, please do leave a comment below and let us know what you thought about last night's episode of Raw. Like the video, share the video, and subscribe. Head over to WhatCulture.com where you can keep up to date with all the WrestleMania news. Come give us a follow on social media. We've got a ton of videos. Watch one. My name is Steiner for WhatCulture. Thank you for joining me as always. Enjoy WrestleMania weekend. I will see you a lot through it. You take care.